Welcome to the RCVR podcast. With that intro music, you might think you're about to watch a rerun of a Friends episode. But Jared, why did we pick that music?
It's because it was just a default setting for the audio, so I just decided to go with it.
That's a great story.
It kind of makes people happy when they listen to it.
That's a good story. Okay, Jared, today's podcast.
I will say it did make me happy. Thank you, Jared.
Yeah. Today's podcast is not going to be about you being the DJ because we have a legend in studio with us, currently live in studio.
Yes.
Listening to it will be a recording at that point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he has many names: the King of Clear, the esthetician of the ERC, the
wizard behind the curtain. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
I've heard it.
Okay.
Chris Redfern, COO, not just of ERC Pros, of all of Clear Home, is in the studio live with us today. This is a big deal for me. This is, you don't meet your heroes every day. And so first off, I just want to say big fan.
Hey, trust, I'm familiar with your work as well.
Ooh, gosh, that made me feel good. Thank you so much.
All I can say is there wouldn't be an ERC program without Chris Redfern, so he is a big deal.
Well, that's how I was kind of that's how I was gonna end it. That was gonna be like that was gonna be the conclusion.
So let's just jump right there.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to be about me.
To
say
that without, jumping the shark, as Jared did, obviously. There are two people in this room who were day ones, and it's myself and Trost. Like, the reality, early on, before we had done anything else, and we had even really started testing with sales reps, we had a call center going and things, and I would say Trost and I have, from the very earliest of finding out kind of the reality of what the employee retention credit was, were at the battleground early on, so...
it's crazy to think about, and it's so funny where it's everywhere now. Like, but the one thing, and we're going to get into this, but there's a lot of different options out there now. But it's funny when I talk to people that have looked, they come and look at our program and they're like, how did you guys build this? Hasn't this only been around for like 2 years? And then I'm like, well, yeah, but we started this building this in basically March.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh my gosh, how did you build this back end so fast and so robust? And I'm like, oh yeah, because we have a Chris Redfern. Yeah. We have something that you guys don't have.
And I think Chris works more hours than anyone. Like,
we're gonna get into that.
You'll be here like at midnight, and Chris will still be here.
We're gonna get into that. But first off, Chris, I love that we have you on. You are probably going to be the hardest person to book and to find a little time to talk with, just because you really are so busy, and it's crazy like how you and I will go weeks without actually even talking to each other, just because you have so many things going, you're over so many things. So we're going to get into all that, but for me, it's really important for people to know Chris, the COO. But I want our listeners, our fans of the show,
all dozens.
I think we can call them fans.
Yeah, I want our fans to actually get to know you a little bit, because you're one of the most interesting people I know, and you're not just Excel spreadsheets. You're not Excel spreadsheets and QuickBooks, and I don't want you to be pigeonholed that way.
And he has amazing presence on social media, TikTok.
Oh, I've got some followers.
Oh yeah, he's a big deal.
All right, so first off,
speak Spanish, but
first off, give me the 30-second up until where you from. Family, where'd you grow up, all that stuff?
Born North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, Oregon, California, Utah. Moved around a lot growing up, so I've never had a place I called home per se. I went to high school in California. That's usually where I say, and partly because I met my beautiful wife of 11 years there. High school sweethearts, 3 proms, and 3 children. And so we didn't have the children at prom, but not everything goes as according to plan. But yeah, so don't really have a place I call. I've now, I think, lived in Utah actually longer than anywhere else, which kind of hurts me to say out loud. But
it's funny when I tell people about you, I'm like, oh yeah, no, he's from New York. Like I love, you might've only been there for a weekend, but I like to tell people you're from New York. So
my grandpappy is from Brooklyn. So there is that.
Well, you can only call him a grandpappy if he's from Brooklyn or you're from Puerto Rico.
That's why I'm wearing the chains.
You just need to work on your accent a little bit. And
I can do a little New York, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so moved around a lot growing up, ended up here in Utah, came up for school. got hooked on this clear drug and have not left since.
I was going to say, you didn't know where to call home until you found your home at Clear Home.
There we go. And for the first 9 years I worked here, it was Clear Satellite, so I still had no idea what to call it. So.
Well, we're going to get into that in a second because your story is actually like it's maybe my favorite thing about this company is where you started and where you are now. I think a lot of people think that that's an option or are told that's an option at different places, but for you it was a reality, and it really is true. The cream rises to the top, and we're going to talk about that. But you're one of the best basketball players in the state of Utah for your age at your weight.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually quantifying that might actually limit the group down, and I appreciate that.
Well, that actually with the body if we're going by
BMI, yeah, I think I'm up there. I think I'm really up there.
How did you get so good at basketball? For real, real question. Anyone who's played with Chris is like, how is he so good?
So high school basketball and football, that was my thing. Like I thought I was a college athlete, slightly delusional. D2, D3 would have way been more my style. But I grew up obsessed with basketball, obsessed with the NBA. Like middle school, I tried to make my own website. I was like, I'd spend every day, because this is like, you'd get the disc in the mail of the internet, you get like AOL, and you'd put it in.
That. I remember that.
So I'd go on to like the NBA.com, and I'd go to the history, and I'd just look up stats all day long, and I just see like how many points Wilt Chamberlain scored in 1963 and things like that. And I was just weirdly obsessed with that. So I just loved basketball growing up. It was like that competitive thing for me, and then football came in and kind of took over as well.
Now you do it with ERC credits,
and now, it is. It like it really is. It's part of that adult finding out that you have ADHD. When you're 30.
Hey, wait, really quick before you go on. I contribute. So I love math. I love stats. I love percentages.
You're great at them.
Well, yeah, but I promise you, I give all of the credit to that to baseball cards.
Yeah.
Like the back of baseball cards, statistics, me loving sports. It actually like taught me crazy skills, and I promise the way we talk about sports, I know it did for you too.
Yeah,
but that's just interesting. It's
true,
worthy waste of time.
Yeah, it's true, because it really was that kind of stuff that like I remember in like 6th grade I found out what a triple double was, and I became like that. It just like intrigued me. Dwayne Wade became my favorite player. He had a triple double in like the Final Four at Marquette, and so I followed his whole career. But I was like, it really was those things. And I just got heavy into stats, and I think as well, like numbers made sense to me, and it might be, both like causation and correlation, but that side of sports always intrigued me is like, yeah, players are good. Why are they good? Can you tell me why Stephen Curry is actually amazing at shooting? Like, how do you find that out? And so I think that, from math to Excel to spreadsheets to sports statistics, I think there is a lot of correlation there.
No, I promise that there is. I know this isn't what we're going to focus on, but I was playing fantasy sports back when I was like 10 years old. My brother and I would get the newspaper every day. We'd track everyone in the league. We would mail out once a week the standings and all that to our friends. And that taught me a lot too. I think hobbies when you're growing up are amazing. I actually think video games are fine in moderation, because I think you learn a lot from video games.
Problem solving.
Yeah. So, but if that's your only hobby, I can see that limiting you a little bit, but I think hobbies are huge. And I think sports, from competitiveness to teamwork to leadership to statistics to all those kinds of things, there's so many things. It's just so funny to see you later in life and hearing that.
How does it play?
It correlates for sure.
Reminds me of that movie, Moneyball. You seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Just like that. Yep.
So is he Brad Pitt or Jonah Hill?
Yeah.
He's more attractive, so
obviously.
he's better. Yeah.
Actually, it is funny. One of my favorite things about Trost is his arithmetic. Like it's uncanny, it's on spot, like quick. And again, it's not what you expect from a guy who takes his shirt off every other meeting. Like it's really impressive. I mean, I love sitting in meetings with Trost. We're talking pay scales, we're talking new things, and he is so quick off the top of his head. And that's, I think, one of those under noticed skill sets that you have, and I love it.
Well, I appreciate that, dude. But you definitely keep up, so it's crazy. But anyways, okay, so sports a big part of you and everything like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to touch on before we get into work stuff, this podcast is actually sponsored by DoorDash. DoorDash wanted to throw some money at you. They heard you were coming on. They're like, he is our most loyal customer.
Yeah.
He keeps us in business. Utah's our #1 market. In fact, Orem 135 South Mountain Way Drive is actually our #1 target market, and we only have one person that uses it. How did you develop this love for DoorDash? DoorDash.
I've kept, there's a few drivers at 7 a.m. that've been at Chick-fil-A enough times to become, I would say, friends.
Do they even wait for your order? Do they even wait for you to order?
Sometimes, no, I feel really good to help young startups like DoorDash. Obviously, not a lot of money or technology they've invested in, and really just keep them afloat. And so I think I've done my fair share. I think if we're talking about shoes or DoorDash, it's a close balance of where I've spent the most ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, that was actually the last thing I was going to say is your knowledge, you and Osmus, when you guys talk shoes, is like watching Jared and I talk about buffets. Like you obviously just know more than the rest of us. Just 30 seconds on the shoes. Dude, you have an amazing, anyone that's been in your office, one of your offices here, one of your offices is literally just a shoe garden.
Yeah.
But how'd you even get into it? And what's your favorite pair
Yeah.
for all the sneakerheads out there?
So it's weird. I've always liked Jordans. And I only had a couple pairs growing up. It wasn't really until I became an adult and there was like the realization of like, oh, I'm allowed to spend money on stupid things now. Like I am allowed to make bad choices, and that's Jordans. They're all bad choices. The reality is it's a lot of money. It's very expensive.
I'm not going to edit that out, but I don't want the reps to take that advice. Continue.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's addicting. My favorite pair is a collab with Union. It's a Jordan 1. It's ridiculously expensive, and I don't know that I'll ever have it. It's probably like a $2,000 shoe. I love Jordan 1s. That's like my main thing, but I'm into 3s, 11s. So anyways, it's one of those things I just always liked growing up, never really spent money on. And then one day I was like, I have some money now. I should buy Jordans. And so I just started and talking shoes with Osmus. He's got another level. He loves the details and Tinker Hatfield and the history of it. And so it's fun. It's a fun hobby to have amongst friends, and it's my wife, doesn't care for it. But beyond that, it's been good.
No, that's awesome. So I'm going to later on, I really want the company to get to know the different people in this company. And eventually we're going to be talking about like investment strategy, different things like that on these podcasts also. Not necessarily from people from our company and things. The best advice I ever got, I promise, with when to spend. I do think it's healthy and okay to spend money, but the best advice I ever got is when you have to work to make your money, you should save your money. When your money is making you money, then feel free to spend your money, right? Yeah. And so there's a season.
I like that.
To be fair, to myself, I have purposely bought a lot of shoes I did not want to resell to then buy other shoes.
Love it.
So you got to fund the habit a little bit.
No. You actually do a good job. You do it like the most economical way possible. Like you're buying and selling, and it's a hobby for you more than anything. But it's also an investment, dude. You've actually made a lot of money on it. So
I've landed some good pairs.
That's awesome.
I think the Jordan craze is going through the whole company. I'm seeing people wearing Jordans, including myself.
I've seen people like Jared Dyer.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Shout out to Zach Warner getting you that pair of Jordans, dude. Zach got Jared Dyer these pink pair of Jordans that are awesome. I love that. That's cool. That's
actually really awesome. I know Zach.
It was for Christmas. It was just Zach saying thank you to Jared for everything he does.
I was blown away. I was like, that's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever done. So props to Zach being nice to me.
That's crazy. He's been married 20 years, so that's really interesting.
I was gonna say, I feel like I do
but yeah, it makes sense.
I feel like I do stuff for you all the time, Jared. But okay. So
not like that. Not like
before we get
obviously.
Before we get into ERC, I think maybe the coolest thing about your story that I bet the majority of people listening don't know is you started with Clear Satellite. I tell everyone the position that you started here, and then the progression to where you are today.
If we're talking story, I'm Drake, man. I started from the bottom. Now I'm here.
100%.
I started at the end of 2012 at Clear. I had a few semesters left in college. My wife had lived with somebody for like 4 days, so she was moving out of an apartment. Osty, who used to run payroll here at Clear a long time ago. If anyone remembers that person,
remember her.
Then shout out to you guys. She had moved in. They had like 3 days of crossover, 4 days, and she posted that they were hiring some jobs, some people for call center work. And I was thinking, hey, I just got back from an internship. I'll take this for the semester. I'll work 3 or 4 months. I'll figure out what we're going to do during the summer. And so I literally I took a job for $8 an hour to work in our call center. back in the Clear Satellite days in a cement building with floors and like drapes covering the windows. It was literally like a prison. But immediately just kind of fell in love with what our culture was, which is what you've talked about and what I love the most about Clear, which is like, dude, no matter what, and we've been a sales and customer acquisition based company, but you really can eat what you kill. And there's always been a chance at Clear to make a name for yourself and to create yourself opportunities. And I don't know that I necessarily recognize that early on as much as just I have, a competitive drive. I have a desire to prove myself. I do not want to be seen as I don't create value. And so there was and then problem solving. I think I'm just really obsessed with finding, solutions to problems because they bug me. And so I remember the first night or the first week I was working in the call center, a couple of people had called off the shift. I was the only one there. And I started taking calls from the other departments because there was no one there. No one asked me to, but I just figured, well, all these people are calling in. I don't know how to solve these problems, but I have Google. I can figure this out, and I remember not really thinking that was a big deal. And then Monday, as Monday rolled in from the weekend, that kind of got out a little bit and we were like, oh, wow, I can't believe you did that. The initiative, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know. I'm at work.
Natural.
I just feel like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, if there's a problem in front of you, try and solve it, figure it out. If the answer is just, you don't know, then that's great. Find out. There are always ways to find out answers. I mean, this is the age of the internet. It's all at your fingertips. And even though this was 2011, guys, the internet still was around. So I don't know how old you are if you're listening, but it was there. And so it was, I think that's just kind of always been my mentality. So I started in the call center, had a couple opportunities to move up, and a lot of this is luck and timing. And I really, believe that, but I do believe, again, you have to take advantage of the situation that's in front of you. And so I had a couple of chances to take further jobs in the call center. I would say the analytical side came out in the prepaid craze. Don't know if you guys remember prepaids, but we really weren't doing any monitoring of prepaids. We didn't have anything going on. I kind of just started to notice it and was, seeing a correlation with chargebacks and things. And so I started pulling in spreadsheets. I didn't know much about Excel at the time, but again, Google. I just started well, how do I do this? Learning things. And so I think the first time I created a role for myself, as we kind of joke about Jesse's title that he made up out of nowhere and became the CRO, and now they're everywhere, which is hilarious. They're all over the place. But was becoming the business analyst that role kind of came up because there was all this data that no one was really tracking, no one was really looking into, and it was crucial. And so again, I think for me, it was seeing that a problem was happening. It was something that was in my purview, but no one was really responsible for. And so I, instead of necessarily asking for additional responsibility, I just took it upon myself to try and solve that problem. And within about a month of that, I got pulled out of the call center. That became my full-time job. And I started working directly with the COO at the time, John Hard. And I think just kind of from there, things escalated. I think everyone needs someone to help, and I think people have mixed feelings about John. I loved John for what he gave me, which was the opportunity to learn and prove myself.
So I want to touch on that for a minute. So there's two ways to be noticed, and in a company, right? Especially a company the size of us. And one of those ways, honestly, is to have a good relationship with somebody, really develop that relationship, right? I mean, this is real life, people. That's the other way is to do things that make you stand out to where you can't not notice it, right? Now, I will say, I came over in 2015. You had been here for 4 years, but you weren't the COO yet. You weren't the CFO yet. You weren't, but you were. I actually specifically remember when I met you, and I just went upstairs and observed for 20 minutes, just and I didn't tell anybody, but I just wanted to get a feel for dude, is this a good company? Is this running well? And I promise you, I remember, well, that guy doesn't realize how good he is, right? Yeah. And you were younger and things like that, but I remember honestly thinking, man, that guy doesn't realize that he could be like running something and an executive type. Like I remember actually thinking that. I'm not saying that that's like why I came here, but I noticed it just from being up there for 20 minutes, and then since then, I mean, think about even from when I've been here, you kind of stepped into that role that you were just talking about. You've also worn the hat of CFO in our company. You've also worn the hat of COO. You've also built and managed the entire call center. You also play such a bigger role in the sales side and honestly in the tech side that you probably underestimate, that most COOs don't play, because in a lot of companies, the COOs and the sales especially, and CFO and sales, they don't always see eye to eye. And I don't think that's how it is here. And a lot of that is just like you being able to see from every angle, and probably because you've worn so many hats. It's so valuable.
I think a couple things to touch on there. Part of it was early on, as I got that job and then things moved around, I did bounce around a lot. So I spent some time in finance. I like same thing, just we were losing somebody and we had trained a replacement, and then they decided to quit. And all of a sudden there was no one to do the job. And so I just raised my hand. Look, I'll take this on. I'll run payroll for Concierge. I'll run their books. And I did I know how? No, but I knew that I could figure it out. Like, and I worked here, and the people, like, luckily Paul and people had confidence. Yeah, like I've proven that I can solve problems. So that was one of the things. It was an opportunity was created, and I jumped on it. To your point earlier about like knowing somebody or just making yourself like impossible to be invisible. I came in here, and it was even more so than it is now. It was like everyone knew each other. Like, people had literally gone to middle school together, and like like everyone was from Pleasant Grove or American Fork, and I remember thinking like, oh man, like I was one of the first like outside hires that like wasn't part of like somebody or something, like
their community.
There was 3 of us hired that day, and it was like legitimately the first time they had like hired outside of like just friendships and things. And so I do remember I didn't think of it as a disadvantage at the time. I look back now and realize, I'm kind of lucky that I did get through that, because it is hard sometimes. But to me, it was really that of just there was always chances, and you've got to be willing to step on that line a little bit, be not afraid to fail, because otherwise you're going to stay in your spot. And I hope that it's not just like the purpose of this podcast is not for the reps. I really hope it's for the whole company. And so I hope everyone's listening to this, and I just want everyone to know, including sales though too, right? Is you can do your job, and you can get paid for your job, and you can do a good job at it. And that's completely fine. But you can also see the opportunity for what it is. Know that you're at a place that will notice. I mean, now you make that call. Yeah.
You know who goes above and beyond. There's always something more you can do. There's always something more that you can assist with, good ideas, all those things. And it gets noticed, I promise you. And if it doesn't, then do it bigger and do it louder and take on more roles. If you see something that needs to be done, help out and do it. It actually doesn't take more effort. Sometimes I think it takes more effort to not go help where it's needed than just to go do it.
Yeah, for us, I love to hire and promote within. Partly because I've been part of hiring and unfortunately letting go of hundreds, if not thousands, of people at this point. We've had a lot of different projects we've done. We've had buildings in 3 different locations that I was overseeing. We had 400 employees at a single time. Like we've had a lot of different things in the history of the company that's grown and changed. And so, but I love to hire and promote within, because it's so much harder to find good people who know how to solve problems, who know how to be adaptable, than it is to find people that can just get the job done. Like it's really in every single department. It doesn't matter if you're finance, sales, call center, general operations. Like every part of this requires problem solving, and it requires the ability for you to kind of diagnose part of your job. That's like, what's the reason that you're not as successful as you could be, and are you waiting for your manager to fix that, or are you going to try and make yourself better? Or again, even make the process better. Like, do you know a hole that exists that you can bring to your manager and be like, hey, like this, I feel like this is happening. This is why it's happening. And I've been trying to do this, and I feel like it's going better as I'm doing this. Maybe this is something we should start implementing. like those people it's so hard to find. And I think it's a skill set that you can learn. I think Clear does give you the chance to learn that, because with as much as we do new things, new companies, new projects, there's always a need for additional like heads and people to start up and to run things. And I think, as we've said it for a long time, this company, we don't have assets. We don't have $2 million of security trailers in our, whatever. Like, what we have is people, and we have people that work hard, and we have people that problem solve. We have people that fight through the tough stuff, which is starting something new, which we've done so many times. But like that's the human capital that we have, and that's, again, like, I think several people have had that chance outside of myself to rise within this company because of that. It breeds opportunity, and it really comes up to, like, are you willing to maybe step out of your comfort zone and grab that a little bit? And again, I didn't feel like I was like doing that like it was some motivational podcast and like I was learning, like, oh man,
look at me.
Like it just, like, honestly, it was like I don't want people to think I'm useless. And I don't like running into the same problem over and over again. Yeah. And I think that, like, everyone does at their job. And there's just a difference. So if you've run into this problem 3 times, are you thinking like, well, I guess I'm just going to keep doing this every day? Or are you thinking, no, I'm going to find out why this is happening?
There's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And who's going to figure it out? Well, I'm the one having to deal with it. So who else should figure it out? Let me figure out a solution. I'm going to take it to Chris, show him. He'll be impressed, and he'll remember that I did that.
100%.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is how you get noticed, and that's how you get thought of as a leader, and that is how, promotions happen from within and all that.
Yeah.
I want to jump into ERC here in a second, because that is what you've done in ERC is crazy. But the last thing there I want to touch on is you're like, Clear Home has this amazing culture and community. A lot of it is because, like, a lot of these people have known each other their whole lives, right? When I got here, even before you were in the positions you were, I really think since I've been here, you have always been Paul Southam's favorite employee from day one. And it's not because of anything other than he always noticed that you would go above and beyond and do whatever was required. And it was hardly ever your job, right?
Yeah.
People usually don't get noticed for doing their job. People usually get noticed for doing what's required and not expecting something in return or whatever. That is what makes an executive type person. And so I would say whatever you did, you made a huge impression. I know you and Paul have had a great relationship for a long time, but Paul's the owner of the company. For those of you guys who, Paul and Casey started this, and I've just always been super impressed that I've always been a little jealous because I'm usually people's favorite. And so it hurts my feelings a little to know that I'll never be in Paul's number one spot because Chris Redfern has that locked down.
You're definitely more people's favorite, but
just not Paul. I'm just joking. Well, I want to get into ERC really quick because, so there was a time, everybody, like Chris said at the very start, where he was the back end. Like, it was Chris Redfern was our entire back end process. And to see what it has grown to today and to realize that has been like in a year, and really since we started ERC Pros, less than a year.
Yeah.
It honestly, when people come through this building and actually look at it, it blows their mind. Yeah. And I know that you wouldn't take credit for all of it, but tell me, first off, I want to hear just like your mindset of like, okay, we're going to build our own whole thing. Talk about troubleshooting. We've never built an accounting firm before. Take us through that. And then also, I would love if you kind of shouted out a couple of the key players that came into place for the listeners to really like understand how this all happened. And I promise you, I wish we could talk about every person in this company, but I want you to talk about some specific people too.
So interesting thing. Yeah. I mean, we were starting the process of getting into ERC. We were using another company. And I think, we realized as we were learning more about the credit, we just felt like that we needed to do this ourselves. Now, all of us that have been here, we've been part of a lot of different campaigns. We've never had a problem starting a new campaign. Dyer, you've tested 100 of them, for us. Like, you've been crucial in that. and always sold really well. And
under the slices to the
I mean, clearly, like we don't
Tim taught me everything I know. So that's why I'm the baby slice.
Your mentor.
And so we've done that a lot. Like, and that's never been that nerve wrack. As we kept doing it, like I think there was an extreme confidence that we had, maybe irrational arrogance at times that like we can figure this out. Like and
a little cocky.
Yeah, a little cocky, but it's part of what also it takes to be able to take on new projects. You got to be believe in yourself.
I remember the Sarah Plus days.
Oh man, oh god,
with DirecTV.
Yeah. I mean, AT&T sent me on a cruise that they paid for because of the shit
no, that's fine.
The stuff they put us through with the Sarah Plus days. Sorry,
Casey.
Sorry, Bishop. Back to that. It really, like, I think we've had a confidence in knowing how to do that. This is something entirely different. And I think we still had a lot of the confidence that we know we can figure things out, but man, oh man, this has been an incredible, like, change of pace of what it takes to get the job done, understanding how to bring on accounting and teams. I mean, we've had, one, legal counsel our entire time. And now we've got dozens of lawyers that have been brought on, tax attorneys to be a part of this and CPAs. It's been a crazy journey. I will say I was nervous at first. Look, I just knew how different it was. I knew that this was going to take a lot. And I look back now, and I'm glad I didn't know how much it took, because I would have been a whole hell of a lot more nervous. Because,
so true.
Because
I remember there was a day when we honestly, you and I were just alone in my office, and we were like, dude, we had come to the conclusion that we didn't think any companies were doing it correctly.
Yeah.
Like we really did. So the option of us partnering and acquiring customers for another firm, that was not going to be an option, because we weren't okay putting the customers, but also our salesmen and our company in a situation where we didn't control the outcome of compliance, right? And so we were sitting in the office, and you and I were like, dude, do we just shut this down and keep focusing on Amazon and double down on DoorDash and these other great contracts that we had and really good options, or do we make a run at this? And I think we were both we underestimated what it was going to take, but we also we're excited about that challenge. And then I don't think I talked to you for 4 months because we were both so busy. So I'll let you keep going. But
no, it's true. And I remember that as well. And it's funny. I'm probably glad that it was underestimated, because it's been a journey for everyone to be a part of this, and wholeheartedly thank the salespeople, the ops teams that have stuck through where we've gotten. But I will say, just kind of to jump forward a tiny bit, as I get on calls today, and I had one this morning with the large bank, it is such like a privilege to be a part of this company and a part of what we've put together, because I love describing what we do with the confidence in our teams, in our CPAs and our tax attorneys and our salespeople. I love being able to go through our process, because every time I do, we leave people impressed. And that's not, again, that is the contribution of everybody. And so to talk about that, we got some lucky strokes early on that we did not realize. One with the Slade brothers. So Travis and Brett Slade, I assume most of you guys know who they are. We partnered with them early on. They had been some of the earliest CPAs to really kind of dive into this. The thing about that you don't know, again, when you're hiring somebody, when you're working with somebody, is, you may know their skill set, where they worked before, do they know how to do taxes? You may know they have a CPA. What you don't know is, can you handle the pressure that it takes to work at Clear? Can you handle the operational stress that our lifestyle puts on you?
Can you keep up with our pace?
Yeah, and that was a major concern, right? And I think we talked about that, and we try to make it as clear as possible. But I will say Travis, in particular, has lived up to every single punch he's taken from us, with volume, with change of process, with speed, with concerns. I could not do this without him, absolutely. And I really do love that guy. And he is humble. He is easy to work with. He is willing to put in the work, which, again, as Trost knows, and it's kind of jumped around, and Dyer for sure knows, no one really asks you to put in extra hours. No one really asks you to do more than you're supposed to. I think everyone just feels a responsibility to take care of those who work here, right? And
sure.
if we fail our jobs, like there's like this stuff again, back to not having this like tangible asset to grab onto. The company is the people, and so I've always felt an extreme pressure to make things work, because otherwise we're hiring people for something that's going to fail. And I hate the thought or the feeling that we're putting people in a situation that's not going to be able to help them provide for their family, to feel stability, to feel safe. And, we've never been the best at every single HR policy and procedure. But I will say I know deep down that every executive, every manager, every director, every person has cared deeply for the people that work here. And that's been a driving factor in like why people work as much as they do. Which is not what I want. I don't want people to feel like they've got to kill themselves. At the same time, we start a new company about every 4 months, so it's busy. But yeah, so major shout out to Travis. What he's put together. Again, I knew the CPA knowledge and skill set was there. I didn't know his operating capability, which has been proven to be fantastic. And a surprise to me. And so I've been super awesome.
Yeah. With that being said, I remember sitting in the first time I met Travis, and I know conversations had been had before that, but Travis and Brett were in there, and I was very impressed by their knowledge. Like I could tell, I mean, dude, they knew more about ERC than anyone else I had talked to, including big companies, and like they really knew the most. But I've never been in an interview where somebody didn't tell me that they were the hardest worker they knew, and which I hope you're saying that in an interview, and I think people actually believe that, but then what they actually do, I can usually tell you in about 2 weeks if they actually are the hardest working person I know. Brett and Travis, countless hours leading from the front. Like they haven't tried to replace themselves once. They haven't tried to take the load off them to free up their time once. And it's been super. I mean, honestly, from a sales side, we underestimate what those, in particular, those two did for this company. Yeah. And it was crazy for us to think we could build this. It was equally crazy for them to accept the position.
It was. I look back, and again, I think I am happy, and we did get lucky. And it was crazy to take it on, and we got lucky, but we worked through the luck. I mean, we created some of our own luck. I've been known to send a 3 a.m. email from time or two. I've worked some late nights.
The problem is you're usually still at the office. Yeah. That's what I don't like about it.
But Travis has matched me with that again and again. It's not like I don't love this thought. It's
not a competition.
Yeah, that you have to kill yourself. I've always said it's because I am easily distracted and I want to solve every problem. Like I don't always do what I should from the organizational standpoint. I want to attack every problem as much as I can. Mm-hmm. But Travis has more than proven. Again, I think there was just there was a lack of understanding in the very beginning what it was going to take to build this. And so when it started going, when the salespeople really started getting their uploads up and getting better at contacting the right type of companies, there was that oh shit moment, and it was tough to work through, but I'm glad we did. And again, I can't be more proud of the team that we've put together. So after Travis and Brett, I would say the next two hires we also got extremely lucky with, and we would not be here where we are without them. And that's Ashley Hall and Janine Orlowski. Like the reality is they solidified everything about how to process the credit, how to legally substantiate a credit, and what it takes to build a team around people like that. And so where Travis and Brett had done the CPA stuff, they had been on that side of it, we didn't have the full circle with the legal side. And they completed that circle. And they've been crucial since day one. They've worked the same amount. I can't shout those two out enough because, and I think most people know them and know how hard they work. But the reality is, like, I think what people may not know is if we hadn't landed them after Brett and Travis, the same thing. This could have caved pretty early on. It would have been very disappointing. And so, huge shout out to Janine and Ashley. They've really helped create this program.
I totally agree with that. Doing it the way that we do it, it would have never been possible without those two, right? And it just wouldn't have. And I think they are what actually give us the credibility of, I mean, we talked to financial institutions that have met with 20 different ERC companies. They've said no to every single one of them. They get on a call with Janine or Ashley for in 10 minutes. They're just like, you guys are different. And we would actually do this with you. I've seen it like every time. In fact, I've never been on a call where they were on a call where it didn't go well. And whoever was, I love it when they've looked at other companies because then they're even more impressed with those two.
It's true. I've been on so many calls with them and turned frowns right upside down. It's so funny. Like the reality is there's so many people that have entered this space and are just money grabbing and are just trying to find a way to get, clients as much money as possible and putting them in a really risky spot with the IRS. And again, we've seen what's happened with the PPP stuff. Like the government does not forget. Like they may take 2 years, they may take 3 years, but they'll chase you down. Like they don't care.
They're giving themselves up to 5 years.
They got plenty of time to do this. And when it comes to criminal charges, it doesn't matter. They'll chase you down forever.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been on so many calls with them, with people who were heavily against either their institution or their downline of companies and why they don't want anyone to look at it. And seeing how the conversation shifts with the knowledge that they bring to the table, citing tax code off the top of their head and getting into the details. It's been fun to work, and Ashley is not backed down from a single person on one of those calls. I love when she gets a little fiery. Like she that's the thing is like I think one of the underrated things about this or under notice is like, the reason lawyers exist is because laws are not clear. If the reality is there's always an interpretation of how laws work, especially tax law. And I think everyone knows this, but there's a lot of ways to take advantage of it and feel like you're still within your comfort zone. And it's a lot. You've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to back up your argument. You got to have case law. You got to have study. ERC doesn't have that stuff because it's so new. There is not 30 years of case law history. There's not all this stuff. So you have to have people who are really able to understand quickly the research, find applicable situations, and then be able to back something up with strong argumentation. And that's not easy to do. And that's why also I think there's sometimes frustration around certain accounts or things, but it's really because they look at every individual account as much as they can to put the client in the best position possible, to put our company in the best position possible, our sales reps, everybody involved. And that's what it takes sometimes. And that's lost us deals for sure. It's also gained us some of the biggest partnerships that we have because people know that what we're willing to do is what's necessary. And so that's been huge.
I love that. So I actually don't want to get in. The thing is we can seriously go through every department on the back end and highlight different people and why they're great. I actually am excited to have a lot of those people on the podcast even and things too, right? And so there's so many people that have played a big role. Instead of getting in, I love who we covered. The main reason I wanted to go over that, number one, is just for the confidence that I hope that everyone has in the product that they're offering compared to our competition. I love the saturation that's going on. I love how many companies are trying to get into ERC because when I talk to a company who's looked into somebody and they weren't interested or weren't comfortable, and then they look at us, it actually gives us more credibility. And and so I hope that what people are taking from this is you should have a ridiculous amount of confidence in the back end process of what we do because of the people that are there and then the way that the standard that we hold. And so I love that about it. I want to get into a little bit, a lot of our especially the sales reps and things aren't necessarily going back and forth with Janine and Ashley and Travis like every day. A lot of them are working, with the other departments and things. And so just in a minute or so, what are the best practices that you've seen in a lot of companies try to keep those very separate, right? Yeah. And we like the communication and things. So what are some of the best practices that you're seeing there that's working the best?
Yeah. So I've worked a lot closely with sales reps and especially those that have been able to kind of figure this out and talk about, best practices and really how to find your groove, right? I think the things that I notice the most is using the resources that you have available to the fullest, right? There's some relationships that you have on your deals that you want to handle. That's great. Do that. Handle the upload, help them with that. You can let the CSM on teams know, look, I've got this one. I think the communication with their CSM on Teams is one of the easiest things to do, but that can give most direction to both sides to where there's no wasted work. I think a lot of times when there's a lack of communication, you've got people in the call center calling, you've got people looking into things. You've got a call set up with next Friday, and now we're all crossing over work. That's ultimately nothing's going to happen until your meeting on Friday. And which means other clients aren't getting calls, other accounts aren't being worked on because we're tying up multiple resources for the same thing. I think the best thing that the groups I know specifically that are working with, they are, and this is cliche, but they're using the hub, they're going to the reporting, they're seeing kind of what the status is, what the call to action note is, what the call to action response note is. They're checking on the governmental orders, are they done? They're seeing what dates already have available. Like nothing helps process something more when a rep comes with a question or complaint around something and they know the details of the account versus like, I don't know what's going on with this one, and there's no details, there's no information. There is a lot of resource available to people and specific groups, and I'll shout out Isaac's group because they are good at this. Is they know what's going on with the account as much as the information is provided to them. It's there, it's visible, and they're communicating with their CSMs constantly on if they're taking this one, if they already have a call, if they've already got something scheduled, and their upload rates are off the chain right now. I mean, like the reality is like they're uploading so high, and it's because there is this advantage of a team aspect that people can move things along for you. But if everyone's just trying to do everything, which there is some crossover work, we're just losing efficiency all over the place. And I think those that really start a communication from the very beginning. So you've submitted this deal. Once you go into the hub and you see who's assigned to that, they should be messaging you. You should be messaging them. Get on the same page about how you want that communication to go. It'll set such a better expectation for your customer, which will create a better upload process, and it'll create a much smoother flow. So I think it's simple, but it's really using the information that you have at hand. Use the hub, find out where it's at, communicate with your CSM, do that constantly. Don't wait 12 days. I think,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The consistency.
Yes.
The reps that have the best relationships with like the back end side of this, but then the reps who have the deals that move through the fastest, they're working on them every day. There's consistency there. Deals aren't sitting for 5 days ever with the people that are going back and forth every day because there's progress being made. And if there's not, hey, we're just waiting on the customer on this. Cool, I'm going to get on that right now. Within 15 minutes, that's solved. Where were some reps, there might be waiting weeks for the exact same issue because they're not doing the consistency every day, checking on every account, moving it through.
Yeah, to be fair, it's hard, right? There's a lot that goes into ERC. There's a lot of documents most people have never thought about or known or what to use. Even business owners, sometimes it's like their bookkeepers have done all this for them. They don't get it. So there's a lot to understand. It's hard to create a process that is smooth and simple for people. The communication part of it is key, and it's not just from us to the customer. It really is that triangle of the rep, the CSM, and the whole back-end operation team and the client. And the more that people are on the same page from the very get-go and set a proper expectation, it just goes so much smoother. I mean, we just like people are getting deals through in 3 to 4 days after upload, and it's because they're properly explaining what's needed. Like one of the saddest things to me is when I see something go into this, like waiting on docs tier 2 stage, because it means they've gotten so far and there's something that's missing. And sometimes that's just going to happen. But on average, it adds like 7 to 10 days to the process. And it's out of our hands and we're waiting for it. We're asking the client for it. And again, I think just the more that the client, the rep, and the CSM are on the same page about that communication, the better. And there's no need to wait for that. If you're a sales rep, engage. If you're a CSM, you're listening, engage. The minute you see that, and talk to that person, create that expectation of like, hey, how are we handling this? Like we're a team on this. Let's figure out how to do this.
You're not bugging each other. No. You're working together. You're actually making each other's job easier by over communicating. I promise it is. It really is. When you and I go a whole week without talking, we might be running in different directions by the time we finally talk, right? Like when me and you touch base every single day, I feel like we're so aligned and it's the same thing, right? And so I hope everybody hears that. in our company, no one should feel like they're bugging anybody unless they're bugging them about if you're communicating back and forth, there's no such thing as over communicating when you both have a common goal.
Yeah. We prefer over communication all the time.
Yep.
Again, there's so many calls that end up being useless, right? There's so many emails and things that if people are, that you are working on as a sales rep or someone else, and it's just look, let's use our time as best as possible, which will then serve the greater good for everybody if everything's efficient.
Yeah, that Teams application has been a game changer. Just the ability to message someone instantly.
Yeah,
the communication, the feedback, it's been so huge, and I think the company took off as soon as we started using that with the CSM.
Yeah, if you're not taking advantage of that and using the hub to find out where things are at and then communicate that back and forth, you're selling yourself short.
Yeah, I'm actually considering downloading Teams.
Which is honestly,
if we can get Trost on Teams, now that's going to be the game changer.
Well, Chris, we've already kept you here about a half hour longer than we probably should have because the whole company suffers when Chris takes a break. So I'm going to let you go here, but I do want to brag about you just for a minute because and I think we do a lot, but I don't think it does it justice. So there's a law of leadership that I talk about all the time, and to me it's a little phrase that people can remember. If it's going to be, it's up to me, right? And every single one of us every day has obstacles and hard things and low motivation and all those things. I bet I tell myself 20 times a day, oh, if it's gonna happen, it's on me, right? If it's going to be, it's up to me. Whether it's my job, whether I'm getting paid for it, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I've never met somebody that literally lives that principle more than you. And whether it's you sleeping here for a week to get us through something that could have been a disaster that no one will ever appreciate what you put through, or building something, or hey, Trost just started another campaign and I have to build a whole nother company and he wanted it done a week ago. But I'm going to figure this out and I'm not even going to be annoyed publicly. Things like that. But if it's going to be, it's up to me. And if you guys can take anything from Chris's example, I hope that it's that if it's going to be, it's up to me. And Chris, I just want to say, this company wouldn't even exist without you, and how good you are at everything that you do. So I just want to say thank you. I love the relationship that the sales side gets to have with the other departments of this company. That's a culture thing, and that starts with you. And so I appreciate you always being so approachable to our guys and willing to listen no matter how busy you are and things. And it really does mean a lot. So Chris, thank you for also taking an hour when I told you, dude, we'll try to keep you under 30 minutes, right? So, but I think this was great for everyone in the company to hear this and to get to know you better. And I think everyone already appreciates you, but I really like this podcast, and I think it was super helpful. So
thanks, buddy. I love you, and I love this company, and I love being here. This has been it's been a huge part of my life so far. There's nothing I couldn't, I couldn't attribute back to Clear in the last decade, and so
we're just getting started,
and we've got a lot of room to go. So. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
You can always count on Chris Redfern. He's always hiding in the war room. They call it the war room, right?
Yeah, war room, clubhouse.
The clubhouse.
Chris's closet.
You can always go in there, and Chris is always working harder than anyone. So thank you so much for all you do, Chris.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it, buddy.